Hello everyone and welcome to the Mash and Jerome Whiskey Room. My name is Jason C, and if you're a subscriber, thanks so much for the support and for coming back and watching. If you're new to the channel looking for the latest in whiskey and bourbon news and reviews, you have found the right place. So hit that subscribe button below and hit that bell notification so you know when I'm releasing a new video, or you can join in on one of my live streams. The fall season is upon us, and so begins the start of highly coveted bourbon releases and bourbon hunting. Four Roses has released in its series of limited quantity special bottlings the 2019 limited edition small batch. The 2019 limited edition small batch marks the first Four Roses limited quantity bottling to feature a 21-year-old bourbon from the distillery, and it's today's review on the Mash and Drum. Each year, Four Roses master distiller Brent Elliott selects perfectly matured barrel-proof bourbons that he combines to craft these limited edition releases. Four Roses makes 10 different recipes for their bourbon using 2 different mash bills and 5 proprietary yeast strains. For 2019, the distillery has included a surprisingly old ingredient in their blend, a 21-year-old bourbon made from their OBSV recipe. The 2019 limited edition small batch marks the first Four Roses limited quality bottling to feature this 21-year-old bourbon from the distillery OBSV recipe. This release also features a 15-year-old OESK, a 15-year-old OESV, and an 11-year-old OESV. Master Distiller Brent Elliott said that our 10 distinct bourbon recipes provide the ability to handcraft new and interesting expressions, and with this year's limited edition, we found some exceptionally well-rested bourbons in some of our higher-aged barrels. Combining the delicate fruit flavors and light spice from our V and K strains resulted in a uniquely nuanced whiskey. Now, if you aren't familiar with the Four Roses recipe breakdowns, the O is always the first letter and stands for Four Roses Distillery. The second letter will either be E or B, which will let you know which one of the 2 mash bills are being used. One is a little bit higher of a rye than the other one. The third letter is always S, which means straight whiskey, and the last letter will either be V, O, F, K, or Q, which will clue you in on the type of flavors you can expect from one of those 5 yeast strains that they use in the recipe. As I mentioned, the Four Roses small batch limited edition for 2019 contains a 21-year-old OBSV, which is their delicate fruit, spicy, and creamy recipe, a 15-year OESK, which is their spicy and full body recipe, and 15 and 11-year-old OESV bourbons, that is their delicate fruit, fresh, and creamy recipe. So here's a close-up of the 2019 limited edition release. This bottle was just released on September 21st, 2019. It's non-chill filtered and bottled at 112.6 proof. There's approximately 13,440 hand-numbered bottles of the 2019 limited edition here. That will be sold in the United States with a suggested retail price of $140. So let's get a pour here. I've had a couple of small pours of this already to take some notes down. And it's a pretty complex bourbon, so let's get into it and break it down. All right, guys, so while this is opening up a bit, I did wait online overnight at the Four Roses Distillery to get my hands on a bottle. I had a feeling this was going to be a pretty hard one to come by with that older age bourbon in there. And with that said, stay tuned to the end of this review to find out how you can win a sample of this from the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room. As you know, I'm all about sharing, so one of you lucky viewers will have a chance to win a sample of this Four Roses 2019 limited release, and you could try it for yourself. So with that, let's get into the color first. If you look at the color here, it's pretty dark. It's got some dark, rich amber, dark kind of a copper color to it. Got a nice caramel color. It's really nice. You could tell there's some older age bourbon in there with the color of this. Now, the thing that was really stood out to me was how thick and viscous this whiskey is. When you tilt this bourbon to the side, the legs on it just stick to the glass. It really does not move. It's like glue. Really nice. Has some really nice proof to it. Again, non-chill filtered. So let's get into the nose and see what we get here. Man, the first thing that jumps out of this glass the first time I opened it was this really sweet, like rickhouse type nose to it. If you ever walked into a bourbon rickhouse, you could smell the angel share and that rich oak that's just kind of seasoning and aging in that rickhouse, and you get that on the nose. There's a ton of brown sugar. It's vanilla extract as well. It's really just deep and rich and dark. A ton of baking spices here I'm getting. Cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice. Man, as this opens up, you start getting these rich dark fruits. I get a really nice blackberry note on here, actually. There's some cherry. There's a leather aspect too, I think, too, from that deep, rich, that 21-year-old bourbon in there. It really presents its age well, but it's not bitter. It's just I mean, the rickhouse aroma is what really stands out here. It's super rich. It's super creamy. I know it's weird to say it could smell creamy, but it really does. But yeah, it's just fruity, a good amount of sweet oak flavor here. But everything is just so deep, dark, rich. I love that rickhouse aroma to it. So with that, let's get into the palate and see what we get. Cheers. Oh man, there's just so much going on with this bourbon. Immediately off the bat, what you get is a sweet spice. You got right on the front of your, right on the tip of your tongue, you get this really nice kind of this pepper aspect to it. As it works its way back, fruit, a bunch of dark fruits. Those blackberries, those cherries are really coming through. Good amount of oak, but that was the first sip. Let's go in for another one here. See what we get. Cheers. Yeah. Cinnamon red hots. Oh, rich, dark caramels and vanillas, just really sweet. It really plays well. Now, I mentioned on the nose how creamy this almost smelled, and it really does translate to the palate. This just kind of sticks everywhere. I could feel it on the sides of my tongue. I can feel it in the sides of my cheeks here. It's just sticking around. As it works its way back, now the age starts playing into it. Now you start getting some of the oak characteristics, a little hint of that leather, but the entire way you're still getting that spice. Let's get another sip here. Cheers. So as my palate gets used to it, the one overlying theme here that's kind of present through the entire experience is I think that OESK bourbon, which is the spicy and the spicy and bold flavored one. It's just there's a lingering spice aspect to it that just kind of runs throughout the whole experience. You feel it in the front of your palate, mid palate, then all the way back. But the interesting is on the front of the palate, you get those deep, rich caramels and vanillas and some of those baking spices, the cinnamon red hots come in too. Then as it hits the mid palate, you get in the cherry, the blackberry, and then on the finish, you get this little hint of an oak and leather, but it's sweet oak. This isn't the over-aged bitter oak flavor that you get in some older bourbons. I think the 15-year-old bourbon in here and the 11-year really kind of play nicely and kind of mellows out that oak flavor and some of that over-aged leather flavors that you can get in a really old bourbon. Let's go for another sip here. Yeah, it's getting fruitier now. As it opens up, as you just keep getting used to it, the blackberries, the cherries, maybe a little bit of a blueberry kind of comes in too. It's very fruit forward once you get a little bit used to it. But these are all deep, dark, rich fruits. But the caramels, the vanillas all stay. It's rich, it's deep, it's dark, it's extremely creamy. And like I said, those younger bourbons in there, even though they're not that young, you're still looking at 11 and 15-year-old. But I think it really balances out and kind of maybe, subdues that the oak and sometimes the tannins you get in a really older bourbon. Let's go for one last sip here. Let's talk about the whole experience. Cheers. See, that was my favorite sip, that last one I just had, which goes to show you the quality of this bourbon. As you keep sipping on it, just kind of get better and better. Again, that spice characteristic is just present the entire way through. That spiciness, caramel, deep, rich caramels, vanillas up front, some cinnamon red hot there. Works. Then all of a sudden, all these fruity flavors kick in. Cherry, blackberry, maybe a little bit of a blueberry kick in there too. And then that finish, just the way it hangs around, the spiciness of it, the way it just lingers. Really long finish. I love a finish on a good bourbon. It's probably one of the attributes that I grade the highest on. Or I grade the toughest on, I should say, just because I love a really good finish. It's what you kind of hold on to. It's what makes you go back to the glass for more and more. And the finish on this is no exception. This is just an extremely well-crafted bourbon that's worthy of being the newest member of the Four Roses Limited Edition family. All right, guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple drops of water to this one just to see what it does. With some older age bourbon and being about 112 proof, non-chill filtered. Just want to see what a little bit of water does to it. All right. Let's let this mingle and I'll be right back. All right, so this has been sitting for about 10 minutes. Let's see what the water did to the nose. It actually got sweeter. Some of that warehouse, that deep, rich kind of rickhouse character has now taken a little bit more of a back seat, and now all these fruits are coming forward now. You're still getting the blackberries, the cherries, but now they're just coming a little bit more to the forefront over that older aged aroma that you were getting from the rick house, as I mentioned. A lot more fruity, still getting the vanillas, caramels. Very nice nose. It just all of a sudden it became fruit forward with a little bit of water added. So let's go for a sip. Oh yeah, same on the palate. It didn't lose its spice. The oak note that I was getting without water has kind of taken a back seat as well. And it's just become a little bit more rounded and fruity. But I think it kind of shook the balance a little bit. Now this is just more fruit, a little bit of spice, but I feel like you're losing a little bit of that oak and nuance. So for me, I like it better without water, but some of you out there might like it better with the water. It definitely becomes a little bit more fruit forward. This bourbon to me is absolutely delicious and offers everything you want in a well-aged bourbon. So when we talk about value, this is $140. It's obviously limited, but when compared to the 130th anniversary release last year, that one was brighter, had a ton of apricots and fruit flavors. Now while I love that one, this release is just darker, richer, spicier, and for having 21, 15, and 11-year-old bourbon, I feel like it's worth every penny when compared to other ultra-aged bourbons that come in at least $200 or sometimes $1,000 or more if you're talking about Pappy. Now, for that reason, I highly recommend picking this up at retail if you could find one. Now, if $140 is too much for you, definitely try this at a bar with a good bourbon selection that may have this, or you could seek out some of the Four Roses single private barrel selects, which can vary between 8 to 15 years old and contain your favorite Four Roses recipes for about $60. I have a couple here. This is an OESQ, and this is an OESO. So these two are private barrel selects that you could find here and there. They're about $60. Some of them offer some amazing flavors, so you don't always have to break the bank to find a really great Four Roses product that includes some of those recipes that I talked about in this limited edition release. All right, viewers, now if this sounds good and you want a chance to win a sample, leave a comment below and add the words, "Smell the Roses." All names will be put into a random drawing, which I will select on my next upcoming live stream this Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good luck to all of you. All right, everyone, well, I hope you enjoyed this review for the 2019 Four Roses limited edition small batch release. Hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit that like button. If you haven't yet, find me on Instagram and find me on Twitter. Always like to know what you guys think. Don't forget to leave a comment with that special phrase below. Good luck to you all. And like I always say, it is not about the whiskey, it's the people you share with. So cheers, and I'll see you soon.